Giovanni, what's up today? Where are you?
I am in Boston.
You're doing like a
It's been one of those weeks. I flew into DC and we looked at Venture X new deal that we did in Fairfax. So it was good to see that one come into fruition. Space looks amazing. And then it so happens that we went to look at another Venture X that just opened in Columbia, Maryland.
Nice.
Right. So that space looked great too, but it's incredible how these spaces come to life from when you see it as just a vacant space to being built out with lights and colors and everything else. And so it's always fun to see that. And then today I've been in Boston with Work Bar. So I met with Sarah Travers and her team, and they're trying to figure out their growth strategy and all these fun things. And it was fun to see, she's got such a unique model, as we talked about in our podcast.
I have never seen a Work Bar location, and I am dying to see, spaces.
We went to look at one that just opened, and it looks incredible. So again, it's always fun to get out and see what's working for people and what's not, and what furniture they're using. And
I know. Wait, quick plug for the account, Flex Uncensored. You've been posting quite nicely there. Photos on your travels. The algorithm shows it to me, which is great.
Okay, good.
I'm always like, oh, look, what a nice photo of Geo. And you've been tagging the furniture folks. So Venture X's had West Elm. Do they have a relationship with West? Is that off the menu?
So funny enough, hopefully Richie doesn't listen, but he went with all very even for the top seating, and he regrets it. But it's okay. I mean, the Venture X Columbia used West Elm still for the couches, right? And so that's part of the unique part, is we start playing with these things and hearing what worked and why it didn't work, right? And so, I mean, even therapy space, Marcus went and looked at the very product and very impressed, but it's different than what they have in their current space, right? They use West Elm. And so this is the fun part about getting to see what brands are and why, and actually seeing them and engaging them and sitting in their furniture, and why does it work? Why does it not work? I mean, Work Bar has a really unique deal where they have zones, right? They have neighborhoods. I'll send you a map.
It's so brilliant.
So it's really cool where they actually have signs. Like there's one right outside the door here. That
in a Work Bar. I didn't actually ask you like where you are.
Yeah, I'm in Work Bar. So there's a sign here the neighborhood's called Switchboard, and it's take calls, win deals, make it rain, go get them.
No, it's brilliant. I think the way they do that is brilliant and enables them to, I don't know why more people don't copy that concept, frankly. I think it's super smart. They have Analog. Does Analog still do all their architecture? And I think it's Analog.
I don't know. I
can't answer that question.
But they have the commons area, which is team up, phone down, inside voice, work it.
See, right.
Cafe, meet up, take a call, have a sip, enjoy.
Brilliant. Yep. Yeah.
And then they have a quiet room too. I didn't get a picture of that one, so I don't know what it says, but it's probably phones down, heads down, get it done or something. But I think that's the fun part for me, is getting around and seeing all these products and seeing what works, what doesn't, and then taking it from one to the other as we have these conversations. And so the beauty of it, when you cover the entire country, right? This isn't, and being agnostic, it's not like, oh, you're going and creating more competition, because like I said, I've been in 4 different markets in 3 days. Right? So there is no competition. It's really collaboration and co-opetition, if you will. These vendors are helping these operators grow, and these operators are even helping the vendors grow.
100%, right. Yeah.
Super cool. Like Venture X, Richie chose not to go with the very phone booths because they didn't seem extra quiet for him. And some people like that, the fact that if something's going on outside the space, they can hear it and see it, but they went with rooms instead.
I know, I love
so the rooms product.
Oh, that's the other tag. Awesome. The rooms are the working space I've been working out of has rooms, and I love it that I know I'm in there and people can't hear me. And I don't want people to hear me. And
so I mean, it's it's always fun to just engage in these conversations. And then the other side of it is obviously I did the 2 Venture X deals, so I know what those deal structures were, but spending time with Sarah and Work Bar and their board today, hearing what kind of deals they're getting done, as well as a couple calls that I've taken in the last couple of days, which are, we're talking about these non-traditional deals, which is what we're, having a quick conversation about, and a kind of a teaser, right? Is there's a lot of these non-traditional deals happening today. And essentially, for those that don't know, that's just something that's not a traditional 10-year deal with a set rent and TI and all those factors, right? It can be everything from some type of management deal. It can be a percentage rent deal. It can be even some type of JV, right? We're seeing a lot of those start picking up more and more. And the reality is, I'm just giving 3. It can be any combination of those 3 combined, right? There's sometimes, a non-traditional deal that has a backstop where, the tenants basically agreeing to pay a prepaid rent, right? And so
every deal is like a snowflake. You could do a non-traditional deal and then convert it to a lease.
Yeah. And so actually that's Premier does, right? Premier only is doing management deals today. And there's a trigger at a certain point once they reach a certain threshold. Right. And part of
that's kind of brilliant, frankly.
Yeah, it is, right? And so
that you can turn it into, if it's performing, then you've gotten the build out paid for, right? And then you get the upside of the lease.
Well, that's the goal behind these non-traditional deals, is you're basically shifting the liability and the risk, right? And so under a traditional deal, you've got basically the landlord knows what they're in it for, right? They know they're going to provide TI, they know they're going to provide a rent abatement, they know they're going to pay commissions, and they know they're going to get paid. The problem with those deals is typically a typical deal, and keep in mind at this point, I think we just got 90 or 94th deal done, or I did in this space. So the pretty good track record of understanding these deals, typically a landlord's not making money until halfway, into the 4th year, right? By the time you put in a year of free rent or somewhere within that parameter, then by the time
traditional lease.
Yeah, by the time you get 2 years,
they don't want to do a 5-year lease. They need a 10-year lease. Yeah.
7 at the very least, but I tell my clients 10 to 12 is kind of what we're doing most of our deals in. And so, that's a big part of it. So landlords aren't making money until going into the 4th year. As we look at some of these non-traditional deals, landlords can start making rent quicker, right? There's landlords that sometimes are making rent day 1 because they've put all the capital up front, right? For the build out and the FF&E. And essentially they're participating in the upside, right? And they're taking more risk, but at the same time I always start with, what's your why, right? Both on landlord side, the investor side.
Simon Sinek in everything in life, Gio.
Yeah. So landlord, investor, and operators, what's your why? And trying to understand and basically create a strategy around that is really the key, right? And so, with landlords, sticking to that for the moment, is going, okay, you realize I'm having this conversation with a landlord currently, where it's like, you realize you're not making money into your 4th year. And they're like, well, we just feel more comfortable and there's no, there's less risk. And I'm like, what do you mean? I mean, I guarantee you, if the right deal's getting signed, you're signing a single asset entity. And that's what you're getting. You may get a personal guarantee or a guarantee from a corporation, but that burns off, right? You're not getting 10 years, from a actual, let me rewind. If the deal's done right, and you have a good
deal,
you're not signing a personal guarantee for 10 years, right? You're not signing your personal, your company's liability for 10 years. You're doing a single asset entity for multiple reasons, right? One, you're protecting the asset, someone trips and falls in one of your locations, chokes, does whatever, you're not taking down the entire network, right? They're going to go after that one single asset. And the other part is also from a financial standpoint is, my mom used to have a sign up in the bathroom that we saw every morning that said small leaks sink big ships, right? And that's the reality is, if you make, one bad deal can basically affect an entire network of locations, right? And so really understanding those things from, the landlord side and getting them to understand, look, that's a huge part. But the other part is you're going to deploy capital one time to build out this space.
Yeah.
Right. So why wouldn't, and you're putting up most of the TI anyways.
Anyway, right. In a good deal that's done well and negotiated well.
Yeah.
It's going to put in a significant amount of TI.
Yeah. And so why wouldn't you want to participate to some extent? Right. And then, the other part is, under, we sell, I still remember when I got in the business, we sell these as, we're incubators. And the goal is for people that grow our space and grow into the building. Well, under a traditional term, the tenant has absolutely zero liability or responsibility to participate, right? They don't, if someone's outgrowing their space, they don't have any liability to call the landlord or the property manager or the broker.
No alignment.
Yeah. There's absolutely no value for them other than the relationship, right? Which there's a value there, but financially,
but even the relationship, I mean, usually it's not very strong. I mean,
well, there's no leverage, right? There's no leverage in place once that deal is signed. And so, it's not beneficial for both parties 100%, right? As opposed to one of these non-traditional deals. That's what I tell landlords is, there's responsibility there. There is an overall fiduciary duty to you that partner has to pass that tenant on. And the other side of it is, I said, you're replacing in most cases, right? If we're building out one of these co-working hybrid business center deals, whatever you want to call them, right? If they're highly dense office space, you're replacing 100 to 200, 100 to 130 square foot tenants. You're not replacing 5, 10, 15, 20, 30,000 feet. And so that's a big part that I sell to landlords is you're deploying this capital one time, because if someone comes in and they want a bigger space than we've got built out, right? They want to combine 2 offices, or they want to put a door up to basically section off a portion. We pass that cost on to the tenant, right? Or the licensee. So it's just a really unique way to look at it from the landlord, right? Now switching to the tenant, otherwise known as the operator. I mean, their overall value is less risk, less capital.
Less capital is the big one, right? Yeah.
And the last part is they really do want a partner, right? I mean, ultimately they want the land. If someone calls the broker or the landlord and they have small space, they want that partnership too. So there has to be that synergy and that partnership there, because again, that broker has no incentive. I mean, obviously there's a commission, but most brokers don't really understand that there is a commission if you pass on the tenant to an operator.
Yep.
But there's a fiduciary duty then, because the landlord reaps the benefits of that potential licensee taking the space.
Okay, so let's talk about the why for the landlord. So you and I have had some of these conversations together. So we had a group in Northern California that had 100,000 feet and thought it was going to be a long time before they saw a large tenant come in. Yeah. So they had us do a feasibility study to see, does flex work here? So, and that, I can't remember 20 or 25,000 feet. We weren't going to do flex in 100,000 square feet, but fill vacancy is one why for a landlord today or an asset owner.
Yeah. I mean, they've got more control of smaller tenants than they do larger ones. Right. And in a world right now where we don't know when the enterprise business is going to come back or what it looks like, right? All the enterprise users are kicking the can down the road, trying to figure out how long before our clients come, our business professionals come back, are they gonna come back? I mean, do we want them to come back? And then even the other part is, how do we build out the space when they do come back?
And they do.
Right? Those are all questions as to how employees, and I still, going back, Joe Brady used this when we interviewed him 6 months ago, right? Is and he comes from the retail world, is for the first time, employees are retailers, right? They get to decide how they want to work for the most part, right? That's not for the entire totem pole, right? As you work your way up the totem pole, then you get more leverage as an employee. But your talent typically is going to be able to dictate how they work in this kind of environment.
And also just what they want when they come to the space,
Yeah.
right? Beth Moore said this about WeWork. Like, look, WeWork is already productizing what the consumer wants to buy, which not all landlords are in touch with, right? Because they don't typically do the build out. They don't, make the product for the consumer. They just deliver a shell or they deliver the TI. Like, you do what you need to do. So partnering with someone who can productize the space for them. And I think an important point there is, like, with the Northern California space, part of our job was to say, like, is this a good fit for Flex?
Yeah.
Is it the right market? Can they attract, who they want to attract? I think another why, the work we're doing with the Avis and Young brokers, we had a great conversation on one of our recent calls. They said there's a landlord in Canada that put Flex in, didn't partner, did their own sort of Flex, like not super high serviced, but they said it's working really well because when they get tenants in that aren't sure, do I want 5,000 feet? Do I want 8,000 feet? They can say, look, just take the 5. You can put people into the Flex space, or while they're doing build outs, they can put people into the Flex space. So that landlord may not be only after, getting market rent out of the space or getting a premium to market rent, but also just like helping them serve other clients and getting deals done because they've got a place to put people.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I've said this before, and I've got a slide that shows it. Is I believe that the office of the future is going to have everything from conference room space with meeting space to co-working as the hybrid executive suite type of deal to spec suites. Otherwise, we can call them whatever we want, right? Larger team suites to partial floors to half floors to then full floors. And they'll sign a lease for a space and they'll be able to expand and contract within the building as they need. Right. And so, and a big part of that is amenitizing the building, right? And I think that's the bigger portion that we're seeing come up more and more as these co-working groups go in to have these conversations with landlords. Is landlords are looking to figure out how to monetize the space, how to amenitize it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these landlords don't understand
it and monetize it.
Yeah. They don't understand hospitality, right? They don't understand the F&B portion. They don't understand a lot of these things that some of these co-working groups understand, right? How do you drive those things? How do you drive event business?
Yeah.
And so it's such a unique conversation because it's different with every single landlord. It's different with every operator, right? I mean, or especially in this current environment right now with the financial and economic woes of, the overall economy, number one. Number two, the financial markets with, debt is big, right? We've seen interest rates go up significantly. I mean, we were doing deals in the 4% range, and we even saw some below that 6-12 months ago, and now they're at 8+, right? I mean, I'm hearing hard money lenders lending money at 14 to 20% to people that are trying. Well, they're stuck, right? They're halfway through a project, halfway through a development, and they don't have a choice, right? Because they can't go get the long-term debt. They can't go get the loan after construction is complete. And so they don't have a choice, right? They have to go pay that. And hopefully the market turns around and they can essentially refinance and pay off that debt sooner than later, because debt service is killing a lot of these deals, right? And so those are even conversations that have to be had, because in most cases, the landlord's got to go to the bank to get TI approval. They have to go to the bank to get just overall deal approval. And even from a non-traditional deal, they have to get approvals for those things. Who signed the lease or the agreement? What does that look like? Yep. Is the landlord basically creating a shell company, right? A single asset entity that then they're going to sign with the single asset entity that owns the office building, and then sign in a management deal with the operator? or is it the operator signing some type of non-traditional deal that the landlord is
You have a
basically
base lease, you can, and that's, so I want to mention quickly, Gio and I are just doing a quick conversation about this because we wanted to start talking about non-traditional deals more because, you know, the economic conditions and vacancies and also just consumer demand, right? There's a lot of reasons why landlords and operators are thinking about these deals. So we're going to do kind of a deeper dive webinar on the topic on June 9th. So you can join us for that deep dive. To register, you can go to everythingcoworking.com/flex. We'll put the link in the show notes for the podcast too, so you can just click on it on your phone. So we're going to have a deeper conversation, do some Q&A, et cetera then, but we just wanted to kind of dig into this. For the operator, just to hit on the why, I did a really, so if you don't have access to capital and you want to scale, management agreements can be a great way to do it. Although management agreements, part of the reason why we're doing the webinar is because they're still so new. There's not a lot of operators that are doing them, not a lot of landlords that understand them well. There are folks, you know, sort of aggressively pursuing that model. And so landlords are getting a lot of phone calls and having to learn pretty quickly, like, what does that look like?
Yeah.
So yeah, but there's some decisions to make on the operator side. I did an interview with, there was a couple at Juicy. I don't know if you met them, probably not, but they are in Omaha, Nebraska, and they did a co-warehousing space.
Okay.
And they did think about doing a management agreement, and they decided to raise money instead because they wanted the upside. You know, they looked at the economics and they were like, you know what, we want to do this, and they want to try to scale with capital partners, but they may do some non-traditional deals along the way. And they each have a little bit of real estate background, which goes a long way when you're doing non-traditional deals to understand the levers, right? And I think that's a really important aspect, is if you're an operator with no real estate background, is really hard to know the levers to pull. And there's a bunch, but to get creative, you have to kind of deeply understand it, which, Gio, that's where you come in. I don't know anybody else who knows how to pull those levers like you do, because you've done so many traditional deals and you get creative even with traditional deals. So anyway, there's not every operator wants to scale using management agreements, but some only want to scale using management agreements.
Yeah. So the interesting part is we're able to have conversations that a lot of people don't understand, right? Because a lot of times I get to play devil's advocate on both sides. So a lot of times on these management consulting assignments or whatever we're trying to do is, you know, I'm working on one right now where they said, so who do you represent? I'm like, well, technically I'm a consultant in this case. I'm not a broker, right? We're trying to figure out, you know, what each party's trying to achieve and how do we meet in the middle. There's education on both sides. One, there's a lot of playing devil's advocate, right? Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that the landlord is comfortable with the operator and the operator is comfortable with the landlord, right? Because this truly is a marriage, right? It's not, this isn't just sign a lease and you have to do everything that the lease says.
People pretty often.
Yeah, you're going to be having weekly, you know, who are you partnering with, right? Is this landlord going to call you every day and be like, hey, have you leased an office today? Are they going to call you weekly, monthly? Are they just going to leave you alone, right? And so those things are vital to figure out on the front end. But the other part is, back to your question, is there's a ton of operators that are out chasing these deals, right? I've seen some of these podcast webinars. We've heard people on stage be like, yeah, the way to go is an operating agreement or a management agreement, but are you qualified, right? Do you have a track record that someone would be willing to partner with you? Do you have the business model? Do you have everything in order that it makes sense, right? Do you understand the market? Do you understand your competition? Do you understand all those things that are of value to that landlord? And the landlord at the same time has to go, okay, do I believe this pro forma that people are putting up? Because that's the problem is I see some of these pro formas and I'm just like, you're never going to hit that number, right? I mean, the average, the desk average is 550. They're telling you they're going to get 750. It's never going to happen, right? And so a lot of these operators are out just trying to get deals done, right? And they are, you know, I think people are capitalizing on the fact that there is fear around the economy, right? Am I ever going to get lease space back? There's all the sublease, what am I going to do? Am I ever going to rent? Am I going to lose my building? Right. Some of these landlords are having major issues with, I mean, there's a ton of CMBS debt that's due in the next few years that essentially landlords are trying to figure out when is my loan going to be called? Are they going to renew my loan? And so you've got a lot of stuff there from a large institutional standpoint, but then you start getting lawyers and doctors and smaller, family offices, people that own real estate that don't really understand real estate to the level that some of these institutional groups do, or that we get to interact with, that are going, okay, out of fear, they're signing deals that I don't advise, right? Because these management deals, some of them, are going to vary anywhere between 8 and 20%, right? So that's a huge gap in the amount that you're giving up. And so part of it too is going, what's the upside for me, right? And is it realistic? Are they selling me
on the landlord side? And when you say 8 to 20%, you mean management fee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're an operator, you get it better than I do. Luckily I know enough to be dangerous, but I'm not an operator. But most of these spaces, 15 to 25% on the high end is what they're kicking off. And if you're giving away 3/4 of that or all of it, what do you really, why are you taking?
And that's the trade-off, right? So you have to get the model right, get the structure right. I mean, that's why to your point, the why, maybe the landlord just wants the build out covered and to get to profitability, but doesn't need, to take 20%. Maybe they just want, the value of the amenity in the building. They don't need to take 20%. And then there's the whole question, even outside of partnership for landlords, like, do they self-operate? That's the question I get a lot. I had a call earlier today. Do I do a franchise? Do I do a partnership? Do I self-operate? So a lot of decisions.
And so that's just on the financial side, right? So you're looking at just the overall pro forma there, and who's looking at it that understands the industry, right? I mean, of course, they're going to put something that looks great up. And not everyone is going to pad those numbers, but a lot of these groups will, right? But then also the build out, right? How are you building out the space, right? We see these deals all the time. They're like, well, we can come in and build out for $50 a foot. And I'm like, you're not going to do it for less than 100.
Yeah.
They're like, well, they said, and I'm like, did they show you a test bid? Did they show you the actual numbers from a GC, a general contractor, that says that's how much it'll cost? What's their FF&E, right? What are they charging for furniture and fixtures and all the equipment and everything else? And most of the time we're able to find holes in all those things and, try to hold people to their numbers and just being honest, right? I mean, have you gone out and actually shopped the competition? Have you looked at your demographics? Where are they coming from, right? So from a marketing perspective, this is another side that you're great at is, how are you marketing the space? We had that conversation before. Do you use CoStar? Do you use LoopNet? Do you put a broker on it to help you lead? There's so many different ways, from a marketing standpoint to get the space out there. And so there's a bunch of landmines to avoid if you're on the landlord side or if you're on the operator side, and trying to figure out how to navigate those.
And it's best for both parties to get it right, to be transparent and realistic and do a deal that works for both parties when a deal gets done.
No, for sure.
So I think we'll kind of close there and save the rest of the discussion for our webinar. Let's call it a masterclass. We'll give it a sexier name.
So bougie.
Anyway, we're going to reconvene on this on June 9th at 10 a.m. Pacific, and you got to save your spot. So go to everythingcoworking.com/flex, and we'll dive in and do some Q&A. Cool. Gio, you heading back to Dallas tomorrow?
I am. I have a 7 a.m. flight. So, and then next week we're in Houston for the immersive. So
that's right. Can't forget, last plug for the immersive.
Yeah, by the time this comes out, well be at the immersive.
It'll be
out on Tuesday. But if you listen to this and you're Houston based,
head over, join.
Head over to, or you can even hit day 2 of the immersive. But yeah, it'll be great to to get, it's a smaller one, right? It's a local regional type deal, but we'll get on, 90 to 120 people together, and we've got some big names with Heinz and Midway, and some great brands like Fuse, and we're going to tour Lifetime and Spaces, and
I'm super bummed to miss it. I
Suites,
love the
Canon.
format. I love the
Yeah.
smaller, intimate, deep dive format. I think it'll be great. Yeah, and then we'll start talking about the conference in September.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
that'll be real fun.
Okay, well, rest up this weekend.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. Talk to you soon.